Similarly to the previous lesson, you do not have to follow this if you wish. You are more than welcome to just watch this particular video and make any notes if you deem necessary. Now on screen we've got the vertical grading editor open for basically the start of road 1. And you'll notice that there are 3 IPs. Now initially, before we had this intersection, there would have been just the one, a point that we could have moved absolutely freely as we'd wished. Now we've created an intersection, we have 3 IPs being created, none of which we have direct control over within the vertical grading editor. The reason for this is that the IP at chainage 0 is the centerline level of existing road crown. As you saw in the previous lesson, if we want to change the elevation of this point, we need to open up the vertical grading editor or the grid editor and adjust the elevations as we need. The next IP is the edge of bitumen of existing road. This would be coming from our template, which is currently 3 meters at 3%. Because we're on a slight angle, the percentage there is slightly off 3%. And again, we don't have control over the edge of bitumen. If we wanted to control or manually adjust the left edge of bitumen on our existing road, we would go back to something called design variations, and we would look at maybe moving the code onto a surface, or maybe matching to an alignment, or maybe changing its position horizontally and vertically. So that therefore cannot be controlled by us within the vertical grading editor. The last point is this vertical curve. When designers are designing and transitioning from an intersection into a design along the string, it can be a preference to have a vertical curve to give you that smooth transition. By default, Civil Site Design will create these curves for you. Now at the moment, if we try to do anything with this curve, so for example, we'll just use the basic vertical grading editor tools by left-clicking near to the IP. Traditionally, any other IP in the vertical grading editor would allow us to edit the cells at the top of the contextual ribbon. However, this one doesn't. We're going to click on Close. If I then go to the Delete IP button and then try and delete the IP, we'll get a message saying it's protected. Now, if we say delete anyway and say yes, you'll see that as soon as I click on yes, it will be deleted and then be drawn back into the vertical grading editor again. The same goes with moving the IP up and down. As soon as I try and left click on it, it's unable to move. So let's have a look at where this originates from and how we can control it globally within the drawing and how we can control it on a road string by road string basis. The first thing we're going to do is to close down the vertical grading editor. We're going to go to the Roads tab and click on the Active Drawing button. Once we're in there, we're going to go to the Road Details tab. So in the top of the form, you'll see Apply Parabolic Curve Ease. So this is the vertical curve we're referring to. We also refer to it as Automatic Ease within Civil Site Design. And at the moment, any road string that intersects another road string, be it the start or the end, will have a curve applied. And that's why it's set to yes. An IP will be created at 10 meters plus a millimeter, just to make sure we don't overlap onto the intersecting road, followed by a curve on the top of that. So 10 meters left and 10 meters right will have a vertical curve being created, which is 20 meters in length. Always in fill and always in cut. So regardless of what we'd created just now, if our road was in cut, we would have had this curve created. Now, if I set this to no, any intersecting road strings that are created from this point onwards will not have the curve created on them. This will not impact existing intersecting road strings. So the intersection we've already got will not be impacted by this change, but any future intersections will be. We're going to leave it at yes and look at how we can control it on a road string by road string basis. So click on Save and Exit. We're going to go up to the Edit panel, and on the following pull down, you'll see that there is an Automatic Ease Properties button. In this particular form, we can control the curve being drawn. And at the moment, we just make sure that at the very top, we've picked road 1, because at the moment, that's the only one where we'll have an automatic ease being created. And if we look closely here, we've got the first row. This is between 0 and 20, which basically means anywhere at the start of road 1 in a cut setting, always, and a fill setting, always apply the automatic ease that we have specified in the active settings. The second row applies to basically whether or not we create an intersection at the other end of the road, and because the software doesn't know where that might be, it basically fills in the entire chainage range. So if we have an intersecting road at the other end, which in this case we will eventually have, we can say whether or not that curve is created at the very end. There are some other factors we can apply in here. So for example, if you did want a curve, you can actually go and change the vertical curve length for cut and for fill, and the IP that's associated with it. The specified cut slope and specified fill slope relates to whether or not you will actually specify a slope off the intersection yourself, which for the time being we're not going to be using. What we're going to do is, where it says always, choose never for both cut and for fill. So this is only going to impact the start of road 1. As soon as we've done that, we can click OK. Then we're going to open up the vertical grading editor for road 1. And I'm going to zoom in, just using my mouse wheel here. You can see the vertical curve is no longer being generated. And it will continue to no longer be generated until we tell it otherwise. Now what we could do at this point is close down the vertical grading editor and then go back to Automatica Ease properties and then set the cut and the fill setting to always. There is one other area where we can change this, and this is actually at the point of creation and also when you want to resample your string. If we click on the resample sections button and then left click close to road 1, now this is a fairly good time to just mention snaps. So in CAD you may have an endpoint snap turned on by default. Now when we use civil site design, we give you the option of either left clicking close to a string or pressing enter or right clicking to choose it from a list. Now I'm just going to turn on my endpoint snap. Now, if I hover my mouse over what I believe to be road 1, have a look at where the snap is actually being picked up. So there are occasions where you will left click close to a string or close to an alignment that you would like to use, and due to the fact that your snaps are turned on, the software will use whatever it believes to be the closest alignment to the snap. So if I left click now, it does open up row 1, but there are occasions where it may open up the vertical grading for another string. So just be aware that that can be a factor in enabling you to pick the right string that you're wanting to use. Now I'm going to turn snaps off just by pressing F3 on my keyboard to make sure that I don't have any conflict. If you see this message, this is because there are multiple strings within the vicinity of your click, and it wants to know which string you want to open. This distance signifies how close each of those strings are to where your mouse is. So obviously I want to pick the road 1 string and click OK. When we created a road string, down the bottom right hand corner of the form, the option to set the vertical curve or the automatic ease has always been available to us. So if you click on the set auto VC ease, you'll get the same form pop up. So when you create the road string or you want to edit the road string, you actually have the opportunity to change these settings. So I'm going to go back in and change them to always and then click OK. Because we've made that change in here, we can then click OK. Let's now open up the vertical grading editor for road 1. You'll see that the vertical curve has been reinstated, and that will now remain there until we choose to have it either disabled or change its conditions in the Automatica Ease properties. Close down the vertical grading editor. So if at any point you want to remove the vertical curves or change the vertical curves that are being generated at the start or at the end of your road string, those are the settings to help you manage them.